I know it's been a long time, but to tell you that I've been busy would be quite an understatement. Today, I'm going to be doing a countdown or ranking these albums. I'm only going to cover the album with the classic five-piece, the five-piece band that put out Nursery Cryme, and you know where I'm getting at with this because you wouldn't have clicked on it otherwise. But anyway, Nursery Cryme, Foxtrot, Selling England by the Pound, and The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. I'm going to rank those albums only. Let me just tell you what Genesis means to me. I've always appreciated hearing their songs growing up on the radio. I remember hearing some of the stuff that they did with Peter Gabriel when I was really young. I would just hear this stuff playing on the radio. There was a very eclectic collection of music being played throughout our house. Anything from Simon and Garfunkel to Jimi Hendrix to the Gap Band to, I was trying to think of all the stuff that my parents loved so much and all the music that I heard growing up, even like Donald Byrd and the Blackbirds, and gosh, I heard it all growing up. I mean, my parents, mainly my father, introduced me to Blondie. I remember he was really into the single Rapture, and I remember he bought that 45 and he would play it all the time at the house. And there are so many other things that he loved. Queen, he liked Queen, and so did my mom. My mom liked David Bowie. My mom liked Kenny Rogers. She loved Pat Benatar. Gosh, I mean, the list goes on, really. I heard it all. I heard Curtis Mayfield. Anyway, you get the picture. So much music was played in my house growing up, and I'm so thankful. I am forever in my parents' debt for playing music for me, for buying me instruments and enabling me to follow my dreams as a musician and meet other people and create music with them. I have had quite a journey through music, and it's a very unique journey. And I just figured I might as well get back to the genesis of this video, pun intended, and speak about the band Genesis and what these albums mean to me. So once again, growing up, I always liked hearing Genesis, especially the earlier stuff. Even with Phil Collins singing, I always enjoyed it. So I will go on and mention these two right here, Abacab, Duke. You know, I mean, these albums were, I just love listening to them. They're very fun to listen to. I enjoy them a lot still to this day. In my teenage years, I was very, very hungry for music, new music all the time. I wanted to hear as much music as I possibly could. For me, albums are they're like books for a musician. I'm not an avid reader, but I am an avid music listener. I am as much a fan as I am a musician, as a creator of music. And Genesis is a very important ingredient to my musical influence. Just coming out of my teens, I think I had already gone into my 20s. There was a guy who ran a record store. His name was Glenn, and he ran this record store called Sea of Timeless Records in Atlanta. He was the coolest guy. Like, he was really into the youth, and he would let everyone hang out in there. He put a skate ramp out in the back so people could skate. And I mean, just, he did a lot of really cool things. He introduced us to a lot of music, and he loved the Beatles. He would constantly play the Beatles. You go in there, I mean, you know, hence the Sea of Timeless Records, but he would play all kinds of music all the time. And just the whole environment and the culture of a record store, for those of you who didn't grow up experiencing that, I have to say you really missed out on something special. I've been in some legendary record stores, and up in Manhattan, of course, here in Atlanta, out in LA, you know, Amoeba Records and stuff like that. So anyway, I walk in there and I hear the opening track to this album. I remember hearing The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway when I was really young. And when I say really young, when I was like 5 or 6 years old, I remember hearing it back then as clearly as I remember hearing, you know, Hey 19 on the radio by Steely Dan. And I just froze in my tracks when I heard it. So I asked him, I said, which Genesis record is this? And he said, title track, Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. And I said, I need that album right now. I think he had Nursery Cryme. So I picked up Nursery Cryme. I would always take new records back home and listen to them in private. And I really liked Nursery Cryme, but For an introduction to the band, it may work for some people, but I think that The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway is a really good way to bring you into the world of Genesis. Like I said, I like the Phil Collins stuff as well. I even like some of the later stuff around the We Can't Dance era, some of it. But for me, you know, Tony Banks, Michael Rutherford, Steve Hackett, Phil Collins, and Peter Gabriel, that version of Genesis really is hands down my favorite. So I'm gonna go on and rank these albums. I am not going to include this album because Steve Hackett and Phil Collins did not play on this album, Trespass. It's okay, you know, but I'm not gonna put it in the ranking, okay? And it's not their first album, actually. It's actually their second album. And this was really hard for me. This was really, really hard because I really love Nursery Cryme. It was technically the first Genesis album that I purchased. I loved it, but I'm gonna have to put that at number 4 in the ranking. There's some great tracks on there, like Return of the Giant Hogweed. That's probably the main standout track on there. I really love that record. It flows really well. I think it's a must-have. That 5-piece was just getting to know one another and create music together. You could just tell just by Phil Collins drumming that things were gonna get really, really interesting with Genesis. Number 3, Selling England by the Pound is a fantastic album. When I heard I Know What I Like, I was like, man, there's something about that song. It has this, gosh, it's borderline funky in a way. I love this album. I mean, it's got some really great songs on there. I love the Battle of Epping Forest. I think that's an excellent track. Now, for me, with Selling England by the Pound, it's a good album. It's got some really great tracks on it, but there's also like More Fool Me, which I'm kind of not crazy about. It's not bad, it's just, to me, it doesn't fit on the album. So Tony Banks was saying that he felt like Horizons didn't fit with Foxtrot. Well, I felt like More Fool Me did not fit on Selling England by the Pound at all. I don't think it should have been there. So, but yeah, the standout track for me on Selling England by the Pound is definitely I Know What I Like. I think that is the highlight of that album. I think it really carries that record. I can't wait to hear it. I typically will just skip straight to that, even though I love, you know, can you tell me where my country lies? I love that too. I mean, I think it's great how that album opens up with that. That bass line is super groovy to me and kind of funky in a way, but that... You get my drift. Now, this is where it gets hard because, as you know, there's only 2 more to rank. But you gotta understand that if I could put both of these at number 1, I would, but one has to be number 2 and one has to be number 1. Number 2 is gonna be The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. This album is packed full of awesome tracks. It was so important to me when I finally got this album after Glenn ordered it for me. I listened to it. It was in my CD player constantly. Everywhere I went, everywhere I drove, I was listening to this like you would not believe. I love it. It's got a bunch of amazing tracks. It's a concept album. I like concept albums a lot. I've always wished that I could write one. Excellent album. I highly recommend it. You know, it was really tough, but as you know now, number 1 is going to be Foxtrot. The reason I say this is Genesis' best album, because there's just something about the opening. Like, I love when they let Tony Banks open up these albums. He opens up The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway in such a beautiful way. But The Watcher of the Skies, to me, it might be one of the most breathtaking intros to any album I've ever listened to in my life. It absolutely blows me away. When I got home with this album, Foxtrot, and I put it in the CD player, I was mesmerized by the Mellotron in the beginning and the opening of it. And the way he goes over to the organ from there, I mean, it's just like, it blew my mind. I couldn't move, you know? I was frozen. And I was like, wow, like, how have I missed this, you know? I think that's the best album from Genesis for that simple reason. It starts off so strong. I love Horizons. I know that I think it's Tony Banks doesn't really like Horizons that much, but I love it. And then Supper's Ready, the way it wraps up, and Get 'Em Out by Friday. Oh my God. The first time I heard that, I was just like, you know, as a matter of fact, by the time I reached Get 'Em Out by Friday, I was walking around my house like just freaking out. Oh my God. Where has this been all my life? I was hooked. From that moment on, Genesis moved into my top 5 favorite bands. There is no denying it. This album, once again, I think it's the best piece of work that ever came out of Genesis, especially in that 5-piece. I mean, phenomenal. So I want to briefly go over the tracks on Foxtrot. I love every single track on it. Of course, I already got into Watcher of the Skies, how it just blows my mind when it kicks in. It's just a phenomenal song. And then Timetable is amazing. I love it. It's a nice, calm drop, and then it kicks back in with Get 'Em Out by Friday, which is just probably, Get 'Em Out by Friday may be my all-time favorite Genesis song. Then there's Can Utility and the Coastliners, which is another one that just blows my mind. And this is right before Horizons. And the thing about this song is it goes through so many changes, and it's like a showcase for Michael Rutherford. And he comes back in after this whole like organ breakdown, right after that whole breakdown, and it's building back up. Michael Rutherford just comes in, like, it's almost like he just kicks open the door and he's just like, I messed it up. I mean, that's so cool how he does that. Now, there are a couple of bum notes in there, and I kind of rushed it, but you get the idea. I mean, like I said, that part where he comes in and he just kicks it in, he's like, I mean, I can't get enough of that. I can listen to that over and over and over and over. It's just amazing. And then once again, it drops down in the Horizons, and you're just like, wow, what a great track that is. And then Supper's Ready. I mean, it's just such a great album, start to finish. It is hands down the best. It's my favorite Genesis album of all time, for sure. So it would be number 1 if I were ranking all of their albums, without a doubt. What are your favorite Genesis albums? Please, let's chat about it. I love talking about music with people, especially this era of music. I really enjoy talking about it. I don't know every little last thing and every single note, but I know one thing. I love listening to music, and this is one of my favorite albums to listen to. I listen to it all the time. Thank you for watching this video. I will have another one out to you very soon. Remember to be yourself, do what you will, but harm no one.